Thank you for being here, both of you.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you.
Hans Sohn, you are from Germany's industry group, the BWO, that represents wind farm developers. Thank you for coming all the way to Paris. Europe has big dreams when it comes to offshore wind energy. Germany does so as well. How difficult will it be to make these dreams come true?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to talk about offshore wind in Europe and especially in Germany. Yeah, happy to give you a short overview of what's happening in Germany and the difficulties that we're facing. It's an exciting time to talk about offshore wind in Germany because the nature of difficulties has been changing quite dramatically over the past years. We do have some 8 gigawatts installed of offshore wind in the German North and Baltic Seas. That might sound like a lot from a French perspective, but the problem is most of that has already been installed by the end of 2019. So we reached 7.8 gigawatts by the end of 2019. And our previous federal government thought it was a good idea to sort of hit the pause button for offshore wind expansion in Germany. So basically nothing was added, no new turbines were added in 2020 and 2021. So there was not much to do for the supply chain, and that caused some sort of crisis that we still have to deal with. Then some 1.5 years ago, a new government came in and substantially increased the targets for offshore wind in Germany. So we do have now exciting numbers that we're looking at, targeting at least 30 gigawatts by 2030 and up to, or at least 70 gigawatts by 2045. And so we have a good pipeline of good visibility of the pipeline of expansion that we're targeting. We know which sites will be tendered when and where, and so we have right now a tender is running in Germany for 8 gigawatts, about the same size we already have installed, and we have another tender coming next year, same size again, 8 gigawatts. So yeah, the plan is there, and grid connections are already also stepping up the pace, switching to larger units of 2 gigawatts instead of 900 megawatts, which is also good. They will be produced as standard units. So yeah, most likely good progress there, but supply chain is still an issue, and now we facing the difficulty to check all parts of the supply chain and our infrastructure, if we are actually able to deliver, if we're actually able to implement all these good plans. And we see some shortages that need to be resolved. When you look at port infrastructure, for example, most projects installed in Germany in latest years were installed out of Eemshaven in the Netherlands and Esbjerg in Denmark. So the German port infrastructure still needs to be upgraded to some extent to handle those big parts. And if you look at foundations, we see a shortage coming our way, maybe in 2027 probably. Demand for foundations will exceed supply. So the problem is you need to make investments basically right now. But the orders from the auctions will only come in at a later point. So there's a time gap that needs to be bridged, and yeah, the risk that needs to be taken somehow needs to be dealt with. So
there's also a staff shortage, right? As in other countries, there's also a staff shortage. I understand, not enough people working in the sector.
Oh yeah, that's another point. Around 22,000 people working in offshore wind, full-time equivalents in Germany right now, and that's been more. We lost some talents that went to other areas, maybe in the US or in Taiwan, where the offshore wind expansion has been more dynamic in the past, and maybe other areas, other sectors, construction work. So yeah, we're definitely looking for new colleagues that can help us do the job.
And what are the solutions to, or do you have any solutions to these problems?
Yeah, we do have some ideas, and we're talking to policymakers about them. Yeah, as I said, there's a number of areas that we need to look at and tackle. One of them is, money, of course, and big investments. Right now, as I said, there's a tender happening for 8 gigawatts, and if you want to win in this tender, the regulator is asking you for your willingness to pay. This is unlimited, unlike in the Netherlands, for example. So we're potentially looking at big sums that will need to be put on the table for developers to be successful in these auctions. And we think that puts too much stress into, or too much pressure on the supply chain and other actors in a time when supply chain needs to ramp up and thrive. So it should be capped in the future auctions. That would be a good idea. And we should also talk to supply chain companies about their needs. Access to subsidized loans or cheap loans would be good. In Germany, KfW Bank would be a good actor to give access to such loans, and to European level we could imagine, or we would like to see some EU funds that specifically dedicated to support the ramp up of offshore wind. We could also think of special depreciation programs, like tax benefits if you make large investments now in offshore wind. That would definitely be of help. And infrastructure, a lot of money needs to be invested in port capacity. And if you look at Bremerhaven alone, they had big plans to build out offshore wind terminal, stopped at some point and now resuming their plans, but we're talking about 1.5 billion euros of investment here. And these ports are usually managed at the state level, federal states, the Länder in Germany, and they will need support from the federal government with these investments. I'm happy to see that there are talks on the way, and we're expecting to have a new port strategy drafted by federal government later this year, and those will be important elements. And we need the people, of course. We need some sort of training academy for a net zero industry, offshore wind, dedicated. I heard some figures, around 80,000 people working in offshore wind right now across Europe, and we need around 300,000 by the end of the decade. And I think we should look at all areas, how we can get to new colleagues, and also that should also cover immigration. Just see what kind of talent we can attract from other parts of the world.
Thank you very much, Hans.
That's a quick rundown, and happy to answer any questions. I'll be around after the talk. After the talk, of course. Thank you.
It's not over yet. So we were just talking about staff shortage. François, Lambert, you have a very concrete program. You're working on something that might be one of the solutions to that bottleneck. You're the managing director of French National Maritime Academy, ENSM, in Le Havre, and you are training people specifically for the sector. What are your training programs?
Yeah, good morning, and congrats to what you were saying, because we share different priorities. So our courses are divided basically into initial and continuing training. Originally, it was a merchant Navy school, which evolved in something else, kind of maritime academy, just like you say. Except that we haven't had the means or money, you were talking about money, to match our ambition until now. And we have been back at it for a few years, which is good, and with a master's course dedicated to marine energies as part of an engineering degree in Nantes. We have two teachers that are here from Nantes, from our school. And we have also a new continuing education facility It's called the JWO, Global Wind Offshore, and we also have people from Saint-Malo. It's a real-life training facility for work at height and maintenance. You can see some picture. And we've already made a name for ourselves, but we want to continue to develop and to meet the needs of Brittany, of course, of France, but all over the world, because just like you were saying, the ambitions are very important in France and also in Europe. So it's a beginning of something, maybe a new story for our school.
And what do you think needs to be done to get people interested in the sector? I mean, you've got this very interesting program, but how do you attract talent?
We just it's just like in the merchant vessel. We just need concrete. We need concrete projects to attract people to the sector. Our students and trainees are just like we say in French, Saint Thomas. Saint Thomas, they believe what they see, and they have convictions, and they see right now that in France it's no more a dream. We have this wind farm in Saint-Nazaire, we have some other wind farms that are building right now, so we can see that it has been hard, but we can must and do better, and it's through this tremendous acceleration that we'll get there, and we heard earlier about shortage of staff. So we need these concrete projects to make this development. But it's also a matter of conviction, and we have a new generation. This is really deeply rooted in energy transition, and we will find some way of attraction with it. And of course, we use a new type of medias to attract them and to capture the attention.
Do you feel that, given that France is now going into that direction, that we have concrete announcements? The minister was here yesterday talking about a bright future for the offshore wind sector. Do you think that is really getting through to people? Do you feel like more interest, more people contacting you, wanting to get into that sector recently?
Of course, I feel that, but I feel also the lacks we can have in it. I mean, the maritime spatial planning. France was a leader, a beginner, and is now a follower. And it's a pity because we have many actors that are able to manage with maritime spatial planning, except. I have the experience of public sector. In the public sector, our skills are not very well developed, but are developed. We have some trainings in it, but we maybe need some new trainings on the private sector. And this is a wish we have with our school, maybe developing something parallel to École Nationale Supérieure Maritime, probably an institute for that. It means it will be more a label or something federating some other schools to develop new programs to be much more involved in this maritime spatial planning. I just take one example. Maybe you had the opportunity to talk about that yesterday with them. I was in Boulogne-sur-Mer about 15 years ago. I was in charge of maritime affairs there, and we had the opportunity to make the fishermen meet some wind farm developers. And after the meeting, the fishermen they strongly believed that we would have 3 projects in front of the coast of Boulogne-sur-Mer, which was not what we were expressing. And I was myself guilty because I was not able at this time to make this dialogue exist. And I need that the state has to make this dialogue exist. We have this council for National Council for Maritime and Littoral. It makes that people are able to talk together. But I think also that the private sector has to make some efforts to understand deeply how maritime spatial planning is functioning in France, how you have to work with some prefecture maritime. We have a good example here. A friend of mine was working before in a company, and without him, we wouldn't have the opportunity to have a good dialogue with the local authorities. So it's a way we have to develop if we want to honor the promise of the president, which is very ambitious, but not ambitious. We have to be ambitious with this target.
Great, thank you very much, both of you, Sohn and François Lambert. I believe we have a little drawing, a big drawing by Funny. There we go. So, offshore wind energy construction move ahead. Attractive trainings, attract people. Hans, that's you. Germany going big.
Love it, thank you.
Great.